All right, so today we're covering Toto, Wolff, and Christian Horner. And after reading through their career and their early start and, kind of a bit of the luck and they had with getting into some of these incredible teams, I just want to say, Toto, Christian, if you're looking for someone on your marketing team, I am still available. My DMs are open, same as McLaren. DM's still open. That hasn't closed yet. So there's still time. Just let me know.
Welcome back to Break Check. This is episode 10 of season 2. Megan and I are going to be going over the two most famous team principals, Toto Wolff, Christian Horner. Megan gave her pitch again. In about 5 episodes time, she'll be pitching for Haas and maybe like some F2 teams as well. Megan, how was your weekend?
Oh, my weekend was good. Pretty chill. I'm just kind of getting ready for to go visit back home, but I spontaneously booked a solo trip because it was on my bucket list and I've realized I've been here for 7 months and haven't done it yet. So that'll be really cool. Otherwise, yeah, just kind of enjoying the bits of sun that we're getting in London.
Nice.
And yeah, looking forward to visiting back. How about you?
Good. My girlfriend's little sister visited, so we were just kind of hanging out with her.
Oh,
Went to go see some music, went to go get some food. We went karting again.
oh,
Uh,
I saw that. Yeah, that's
yeah,
awesome.
indoor. It's a little chilly out still, but I'm gonna get out on the outdoor carts again. Not my best, still fastest there. What can I say?
Yeah.
It's a given. It's a given. Toto, if you need another driver, I actually don't think I could get any of the F1 cars around the track, so don't call me. But yeah, weekend was good.
I mean, we don't have much new news to discuss. Of course, if you're on F1 Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, or you follow Dumois on Instagram, someone hilariously posted that Alonso and Taylor Swift, were rumored to be dating or seeing each other now that they are both recently single. And while this is largely not true at all, and it was a hilarious clash of, different worlds of mine. Some of the memes on Twitter and TikTok have been incredible. And Alonso today, we're recording this on Monday, he posted a TikTok clip with a Taylor Swift song behind and then commented feeling 33, which is Taylor Swift's age. So I just thought it's good
Mhm.
humor, but mhm.
What do you think Alonso and Taylor Swift would talk about?
What would that's honestly a great question. They're both well traveled. So I feel like any conversation they could like talk about and get on with are around travel.
Yeah,
I
yeah, I
can't
guess
say
so.
I can't see that they listen to the same music or have the same political views or, you know.
Interests.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Do we have anything else we want to go over before we start talking about this?
I mean, no. I mean, we could talk about Baku or we could save that for the end because that's coming up.
Uh, I do have something I do want to say. Not that there's been any like articles or any
Hmm.
developments, but I will say, we're not in silly season. The season just started,
Hmm.
but I do think that there is something going on behind closed doors between Lewis and Mercedes.
Hmm.
That I do think he'll stay and I do think he'll resign, but I do not think it is as straightforward as most people think, or maybe they want us to think it is.
What I find weird is that they still haven't announced his reassign, which is why I could totally see that because I know they've been in discussion for a while now. They talked about it even at the end of last season that they were in
Yeah.
discussion. So it to be end of April, like almost May now, and still nothing's come out. I don't know really what they're waiting for.
Yeah.
Um, but it'll be interesting. I'm really curious to see how long he stays because I could see it being 1 to 2 more years max. I'd be shocked if it was anything longer.
Yeah, and like when it came to Alonso and Alpine, who
Hmm.
wanted the longer term and who wanted them out sooner.
Yeah.
I can't get a vibe if Lewis wants to stay longer than Mercedes wants him, or Mercedes wants him to stay longer than Lewis wants him to,
Right.
because both parties have been pretty good about being tight-lipped about it. Like nothing's really leaking out,
Hmm.
but Yeah, feels like a deal that should have been done like 6 months ago. Yeah, I just kind of wanted to touch on that. Um, one more thing, again, not really anything come out recently, but something that I've been thinking about lately. I do feel mildly confident that Ricardo will have a seat next year.
Where do you think he's gonna go?
I think he's gonna accept that he's just not gonna be at a contender right now. And I think
Hmm.
he'll go to like a Haas or
Hmm.
uh maybe not AlphaTauri, just
Yeah,
because it's like such a junior team, but like a Haas, if Alfa Romeo moves on from like Joe or something like that, or if Bottas goes
right.
somewhere like that.
Yeah, because I would say Williams, but I don't see Logan Sargent leaving after this year. I totally think they'll give him another 1 year.
Yeah.
Um, I
He
wouldn't. I
passed
don't.
the initial like
Mhm.
are you capable test, you know?
Can you do it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think unless he messes up big time in like the next few races, I think he's
Yeah.
solidified a second year. But
Hmm.
yeah, I mean, I totally see. Daniel just sounds like when he speaks, he already has conversations happening with other teams.
Yeah.
So I totally think things are in the movement. I hope he comes back. And then I could totally see Mick coming back, not next year, but maybe the year after.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
But
Yeah, other than that, I don't think I have anything I wanted to go over. Just two guys I was thinking about recently and just figured I'd save
I
it.
think it was actually now that we're talking about it, I think Seb was seen with either the Porsche or Audi person, like someone from one of those two
Mm.
companies. So he was had at an outing. So people are now a little suspicious on what they were talking about or why they're hanging out. So
Yeah, that's a good point.
sprinkling that in there.
I do think he'll come back for Audi.
Mhm. I hope so. Oh my God.
It'll be a couple years down the it'll be like 4 years down the line, 3 years down the line.
Three. Yeah.
He'll have been able to spend time with his family. His kids will be a little bit older. You know, he might be ready
Hmm.
to step back in for a little bit. So we'll see. I do think it's gonna happen. I think if it's gonna happen with anyone, it's gonna happen with Audi. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I'll cross my fingers.
Yeah. Seriously. Yeah, we could get into it. Do you want to, should we talk about Toto first or Horner first?
That's a good question.
Who's older?
That I think Toto's 51.
Okay, yeah, he's 49, so you can go
Okay.
first.
All right. So we're going to be talking about Torger Christian Wolff,
Oh
otherwise
yeah.
known as Toto Wolff. He is born January 12th, 1972. He's 51 years old.
He's like five, no, like 10 days older than my dad. My dad was born
Oh,
January 31st.
sick. Yeah. Yeah, so he's 51 years old. At first I thought he was older than I thought he was, but then when I like thought about it, no, I think that's about the age that I
Hmm.
expected him to be. He is Austrian nationality, but he was born to a Polish mother and a Romanian father.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah,
Cool.
so I think he had like a birthright sort of deal
Yeah.
in Austria. But so he has been married to Susie Wolff since 2011. He is fluent in German, English, French, Italian, and Polish.
Wow.
So I'm trying to get like that. So far I've got two
Yeah.
languages down, so I've gotta get on it. Yeah. So I'm a huge Mercedes fan, a big fan of Toto Wolff. But I admittedly did not know a ton about his past, and I don't know what I was expecting, but I think I was expecting like and I guess I don't know the path that many team principals take to becoming team principals, but I think I was expecting like the American sports coach route where
Yeah.
they're like an assistant for like four different teams for like 20 years and like they finally get their shot and they make the most of it. That not really the case for Toto Wolff. So he had an excellent education in Vienna in business and economics, which um has definitely paid off. As of 2021, he is a billionaire worth $1.25 billion, which is quite a lot of money.
A little bit.
Yeah. So he did have a racing career like most people in motorsports, which I do think is what sets him apart from other just, investors who see motorsport as like the hot thing to get into. They get in
Hmm.
over their head and they just, have to dig themselves out. I do not think that was the case. I think he was prepared for what he wanted to do.
Hmm.
But definitely his money got him places that others would not have gotten. Um, so his racing career did not make it to F1 or F2 or anything like that. But in 1992, he started in the Austrian Formula Ford Championship. 94, he won the 24 hours at the Nürburgring in his category. 2002, sixth in the NGT category of the FIA GT Championship. I forgot how much these racing series love acronyms.
Yep.
Um, 2003, he was in the Italian GT Championship. And then 2006, he was a runner up in the Australian Rally Championship, which is when I was telling you earlier, he actually raced in a Red Bull car for that. And in 2006, he was the winner of the Dubai 24-hour race.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so
That's
he
cool.
we've talked about this before, how like most F1 drivers do not win a race, and even further than that, most really good drivers don't make it to F1. And in Toto's case here, he didn't make it to like F3, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
But he was clearly like a talented driver. Like there's certain tracks where he has like the best lap time in a certain class of cars, like just
Hmm.
all around the world. So definitely like had a decent racing career before he realized, this is it. And then he decided to get more on like the investment side of it. So I'm assuming how he built most of his wealth was between his two investment companies founded in like 96 and like 2002, I think. So the first one was called March 15. The second one was called March 16. I do not know the significance of the names of those companies, but I tried to find it. But yeah, the first one's called March 15, all one thing. And the second one's called
Okay.
March 16, all one thing.
I mean, it makes it easy to remember the date it was founded if that was the case,
That
but
might be it. Yeah. And the I also don't know why he needed a second investment company. That's probably rich people stuff that like I'm not aware of.
Mhm.
Like why you would
Yeah.
want that. But he pretty much seemed to focus on like technology in motorsports. So investing in companies that were making advancements in engines and drivetrains and just
Mhm.
tech in cars. Like uh that was definitely his focus, was always motorsport. So after years of just kind of being an investor, and I'd assume accumulating quite a bit of wealth, I'd be curious to know how much of his wealth was acquired pre-Mercedes,
Mhm.
because I don't think that's like super public, just because it's his
Yeah.
money. But yeah, that's all he kind of focused on was motorsport investment, motorsports management, all that. So um, and then in 2009, he bought a share of the Williams F1 team and joined the board of directors. So that is how he got
Cool.
into F1. So obviously, his body of work in the motorsport investment tech field allowed him this opportunity to break through. Um, and then in 2012, he was named executive director of Williams F1. And the Williams team to this day has won its last race under Toto Wolff.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Um. So yeah. So he spends these 3 years at Williams, which I don't know if you knew, but I always thought that Mercedes Mercedes had like purchased a stake of Williams, and like
Mhm.
that's how they became partners, because Williams a bit of a junior team to Mercedes at times over the years.
Yeah.
I did not realize that it was because Toto had like an established working relationship with the Williams team. I don't know if you did.
I had no idea. I assumed the same as you that they had just
Yeah.
bought a chunk at some point.
So yeah, in 2013, he left Williams to be the executive director at Mercedes AMG Petronas F1, and the rest is history. And
Mhm.
no, I'll go through some of the stuff, but yeah. So the bulk of his F1 career was spent at Mercedes, which I think is insane,
Mhm.
because like he had 3 years at Williams, who at the time was a really good team
Yeah.
and scoring points, winning races. And then I don't know if I mean, Mercedes wasn't like a top team. Toto doesn't have this like lengthy career of being a team principal that would have made Mercedes think
Right.
like this guy is instant success. Uh, Lewis wasn't Lewis yet, that
Hmm.
they eventually got him over. I genuinely do not know what clicked over at Mercedes.
Mm. That's such a gamble, I think, to take,
Yes.
but it worked out. I mean, they also had was Michael Schumacher at Mercedes? No, that was 2012. So he left when Toto
Yeah,
joined.
he
Okay.
left when Toto came in.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
2013, he left Williams to be executive director at Mercedes. He also acquired 30% of Mercedes-Benz Grand Prix Ltd, 10% also held by Niki Lauda, 60% owned by the parent company Mercedes, which I believe this company, subsidiary of Mercedes, creates, like, builds the cars on their racing
Okay.
teams. So like their production team. Uh, and also in 2013, he just took over all Mercedes-Benz Motorsports activities. They were all under him. He was CEO of Mercedes Racing. So once again, I know I just kind of glossed over his investment history just
Hmm.
because it's not something I'm super like well versed in, is
Hmm.
investment. Otherwise, I would not be here. If I was, I'd be like in Monaco on a yacht or something.
Yeah.
Um, but I mean, he must have just really shown a repeated history of putting his money in the right places, making the right decisions. It just really feels like everything came together all at once for him and
Hmm.
everyone involved.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's crazy how even similar to Christian Horner, which even though he didn't necessarily have the stake in Red Bull, but just the way that they took a gamble on a guy with
Yeah,
like not 20 years of credentials to back him up in like that specific kind of role,
yeah,
and they just kind of trusted him. I
yeah.
mean, I also think that goes to show how convincing they could be as well, because they probably had so many meetings with them and discussions and
Oh yeah.
all that. So very, very shocking. But
Um. So yeah, I mean, like, we could sit here and talk about his time at Mercedes, like, for forever. There were a few things I did want to highlight.
mhm.
Um, in 2014, he did end up selling 2/3 of his shares in Williams in 2014, sold the rest in 2015. And his wife Susie was a test driver at Williams until 2015.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Which I
yeah.
did not
Okay, I
know.
didn't. I knew that. Yes, I knew she
Yeah.
was a good driver. Yeah.
And Susie Wolff, her own like force in the F1 or racing motorsport management world nowadays as
Hmm.
well. I think she's director of like the F1 Academy now. I don't know the
Yeah,
exact
she's
name.
it's the new so there was the W series and she was part of that, and now the W
Right.
series is essentially not a thing, and instead they have this academy that women and men are driving in. So it's a new way for women to develop into the thing, and then from there they can enter F3 and F2 and so on.
Yeah.
So she's yeah, oversees that, which is really, really cool.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I think it would be awesome to see her take more prominent F1 roles. I think she's on that trajectory, and I think it'd be really cool to see.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have any women principals or tech directors
No.
or anything right now. So it
Yeah.
would be cool ever since the Williams left. So it would be really cool to see her in that role. I think of anyone that it would be
Yeah.
her.
Yeah.
So
F1 not the most diverse of the bunch when it comes to upper management.
let
um
alone the drivers, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm like I know in American sports there's a lot of a call there's a big call for more diversity in like management and coaching because
Hmm.
an overwhelming number of the athletes are people of color, but that's not even the case in F1, so it's like hard to call for that when Lewis is the only one in the past like
Ever.
ever. Yeah. So also there was an overlap period
Mhm.
in 2014 or I think 2015 as well, where Toto owned stakes in both Mercedes and Williams at the same time. So he was
Mhm.
not in charge of Williams anymore, but he was still a presence there. And as co-owner of both teams, he saw multiple 1, 2, 3, 4 finishes in both racing and
That's
qualifying
crazy.
with Lewis, Nico, Botas, and Felipe Massa. They were one, two,
And
three,
they were all
fouring it.
great drivers too.
Yeah,
So
yeah, they were killing it. And the only trophy that he has in his office besides his constructor championships is the 1, 2, 3, 4 finish that they got at the Red Bull Ring in 2014.
that's so cool.
Yeah. Also, this also makes sense on how Botas got to Mercedes. I think he had
Hmm.
quite the working relationship with Toto already. So,
Yeah.
in 2020, Mercedes won its 7th consecutive double championship, breaking the previous records of double championship or consecutive double championships, World Driver Championships, and Constructor Championships by Ferrari from 2000 to 2004.
Okay.
Ferrari previously had 5 in each of those, I believe.
Wow.
Toto is the only team principal in F1 history with more than 5 double championships. And he signed a new deal in Mercedes to continue as principal and CEO in 2020. That was supposed to go through the end of this year. I have not seen anything about an extension, but I'd just assume that he's
Yeah, I would
there
hope.
moving forward. Yeah, I like he seems to be talking
Yeah.
about the future, so I think he's still sticking around.
I find it interesting that it's not always in discussion contracts for the principals, but always just focus on the drivers. I would be curious to hear more about like what goes on with that because, how often are these people in these roles being reviewed and, what their contracts look like? Do they have a contract, or like a time
Right.
limit or anything? So that would be curious, but
It is weird, not weird. We're not used to it because all of our American sports, the contracts are all public.
yeah.
You can just look it up who's signed for what, how much money, for how long.
Yeah, right.
And it seems very hush hush around F1. And like even with Ricardo's contract, like we had no idea what the details of that were at
Mm-mm.
any given moment.
No, it's very interesting. There's a lot around. And I don't know if that's even just a cultural thing or if it's just how it's always been in the sport.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Before we move on, I did want to highlight 2018 specifically
okay.
when Mercedes won both the World Driver Championship and Constructors Championship in F1. They won F2 with George Russell, European F3 with Mick Schumacher.
Oh,
All
wow.
3 titles of the DTM competition, which is a German sports
Hmm.
car racing competition they partook in, and both F1 esports championships.
That's insane.
Yeah. So 2018, I think the best year under Toto Wolff at Mercedes by
Wow,
far.
that's so cool.
Yeah. um, just a couple other tidbits on Toto before we move on. He has an honorary doctorate from Cronfield University. He had an associate fellowship of the Oxford Sade Business School.
Mhm.
And his tenure with Mercedes was the subject of a Harvard Business School case study, which he actually visited Harvard in 2022 to kind of teach and talk to the students, which I thought was
So
cool.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be awesome. But yeah, that's Toto Wolff. I don't know if it's a hot take to say, but I think just easily the best team principal in F1 history. So,
Yeah, I would say of all of the team principals I could ever interview, if I could interview one, I would pick
oh,
Toto
Toto
first.
Wolff.
A
Yeah.
100%. Although I will say Christian Horner is an incredibly talented team principal. Like
Oh,
he
yes.
he is so good at what he does. He's a very, very close second. So I like that we're covering both of them because you
Yeah.
can see why they're such success at Red Bull and Mercedes, not just because of the engineers and the drivers, but
Yeah.
the guys leading these teams are genuine leaders in what they do. And it's really cool.
Yeah, definitely. I'm excited to hear about Christian. Even though he is a frustrating person,
Yeah.
I think he is great at what he does. And I
Yeah.
do have to give him props. So,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I would say Toto and Christian are a bit of a bit babies when it comes to getting things their way, but
oh,
Horner
yeah.
knows how to really get under people's skin.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I know they have this at times heated rivalry. I
Mhm.
think at the end of the day, I think they're pretty friendly with each other.
Yeah. I think they just have respect for one another
Yeah,
and they're going to be there for their team first and foremost, no matter what.
right. So yeah, that's Toto Wolff. Uh yeah, like I said, I don't know what I expected for his career,
Mm-mm.
but pretty straightforward. When he had his chances, he seemed to have a plan and make them work. So impressive career so far. Excited to see what the rest of it looks like.
All right, so Christian Horner, of course, the team principal of Red Bull Racing, the current leader, has been leader. He was leader all last year. Well, most of last year. Ferrari had a nice little fun bit in the beginning. Um, Missed those days. But just some high level recap. He's formerly a British racing driver. He was born in November of 1973. He's married to Jerry, also Ginger Spice. They got married in 2015. Also, when I found out those two were married, it was another like worlds collide situation because
Yeah.
I did not realize that. But they have 3 kids, and he has 5 constructors and 6 world drivers championships under his management. But early career, of course, like many people, he was karting. Then he won a Formula Renault scholarship in 1991, which allowed him to actually start his racing career. So then in 1992, he raced in the Formula Renault Championship with Manor Racing, and then he won a race and became the highest ranked rookie for that season. So early on, pretty good career. He moved into the British F3 in 1993, where he finished second in the B class, and then he won 5 races. He was in F3 for a few years, and he finally moved into F2 in 1996. And then in 1997 he moved to Formula 3000, which I think I've seen before, but I don't think we've talked much on. I want to say like maybe Alonso raced in it or something. Someone
Yeah.
else has raced in it before, I believe. But that's when he also founded the Arden team. He set the team up with borrowed money, partially from his family, partially from who knows where. And then he persuaded the P1 Motorsport team founder to take the role as a race engineer. P1 Motorsport is who he had raced with in the British Championship and British F3. So after he bought a secondhand trailer to use to move the car around from Helmut Marko, who was at the time the Red Bull junior team manager, and it was also one of Horner's main rivals. But of course, now we know they work
Yeah.
closely together. But yeah, they were all in F3000 at the time. He continued racing in 1998, and then it's quoted that after following Juan Pablo Montoya through a high speed first corner, it was in that moment he realized that he was not capable of replicating that kind of commitment to the
Yeah.
speed in those high speed corners. I know he's mentioned this a few times in interviews, but it's crazy to like hear like, oh, it was that moment he realized like racing was not his future. And so that's when he decided to take a step back and start developing and focusing on the team. He was also only 25 years old when he decided to stop racing, which I think is fascinating. Like that just seems
Yeah.
so young to me. But
Um
that's yeah.
oh, I don't remember the name of the rookie, but
Mhm.
Toto had a similar moment. I think in like his third year in like one of the GT series,
Okay.
where he was, I think he was following this new racer in the series, and he just realized he did not have it. He like had
Yeah.
nothing for them. And I think that's when he decided to go more to the management route of things.
I think that's a great way to transition though, because you as a driver know what you want from your team, and so now you're kind of going playing the other side of the coin.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think that's also what makes them such great team principals, or
Yeah.
leaders, is just the fact that they've been in both positions.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so then post racing, he still had his team Arden for a few years, obviously, then taking on someone else to fill his role. And they came in second in the 2000 championship for F3000. And then they won again in 2002 through 2004. But during the 2004 season, driver Luisi was brought in by Helmut Marko with a Red Bull sponsorship. So that's also, again, where we
Mm.
see Christian Horner loosely tied into Red Bull.
Yeah.
By this point, Horner also wanted to move into F1 and he wanted to buy the Jordan F1 team, but
Mm.
they were having so many disagreements due to the cost and the budget and the
Yeah.
price of the team. And that's when Red Bull ended up buying the Jordan F1 team. So that's when they started racing for the 2005 season. And at the beginning of the 2005, I keep when I say 2025, 2005, they made Horner the head of the team, which also made him the youngest principal at the time. He was also appointed only 8 weeks before the season started, which I think is very risky for also a brand new team. But
Yeah, yeah. And a risky start to your career, you
yeah.
know? Like it's so hard to break into F1. Well, maybe it's not hard. I don't know. But yeah, I feel like it's like a lifelong achievement that I
Mhm.
wouldn't want to take the wrong opportunity and just end my
Too
career before it
soon.
starts, you know?
Yeah. He was still like what, maybe 30 at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they started the season 8 weeks later and they finished strong in the beginning. They finished fourth and seventh in Australia with Coulthard and Klein. Coulthard, as we know, is a British F1 driver as well. He's now a commentator, I believe, on Sky Sports, probably,
Yeah, I
or
think so.
was. He's been around. You hear
Yeah.
him sometimes. Uh, their season total was 34 points, which was much higher than the 9 that Jaguar had seen the year prior. In the following year is when Adrian Newey was appointed the chief technical officer, which, as we know, he was with them for quite a bit. Or
Mhm.
is he still with
He's
them?
still he's still
Yeah,
with
that's
them.
yeah.
He was allegedly the extra pickles they put on their sandwiches last year.
The extra. And then the 2006 season gave the Red Bull team their first podium finish at the Monaco Grand Prix. There's some images somewhere of Toto jumping into the pool. He was like in a speedo or something, just
Yeah.
jumped right in, similar to like when Daniel in his suit jumps in. I feel like it's a Red Bull tradition now.
Yeah.
But in 2008 and 2007 were slower periods for the team just because they were having reliability issues. They had Renault engines. And as we know from the Drive to Survive series, they also talk about Renault's reliability issues. So this seems to be a pattern
Yeah.
for Renault. But 2009 is when Vettel and Weber brought them to second place in the constructors. They finished second and fourth, respectively, in the drivers' championship. And then, of course, as we know, this is Vettel's high time. 2010, they won their first constructors with one race to spare. And then Vettel secured his first championship at the final race and became the youngest champion of all time at the time. And then with 9 days short of his 36th birthday, Horner also became the second youngest team principal to win an F1 Constructors Championship. So
Yeah.
very,
Wow.
again, very guy who they took a big risk on and it started paying off pretty early, pretty
Yeah.
quickly. And then yeah, they went on to win both the drivers and constructors from 2010 to 2013 with Sebastian Vettel.
We
I
have
mean,
not we have not had a non Red Bull or Mercedes champion in like
a long time.
a long time.
Yeah, it's been a long. What team do you think will secure the championship next? If it's not Red Bull, if it's not Mercedes, what team do you see it being next?
um Well, if I look back on history
Mhm.
tells me it'll be Ferrari.
Right.
But if I'm realistically looking to the future, honestly, Aston Martin,
Mhm.
I don't know if Alonso is the one that does it. I don't think Alonso is the one that does
No.
it. But if they realize and understand what they have right
Mhm.
now and don't fumble it and like build on it, I
Mhm.
and maybe start gearing things towards getting Felipe Drugovich ready to be in
Right.
F1. I think within the next 5 years, or yeah, I think within the next 5 years, Aston Martin could win a championship. A drivers or a constructors is probably easier
Yeah.
to win when you have like your Max Verstappens and Lewis Hamiltons still
Mhm.
around. But yeah, I think Aston Martin, if they do things the right way, can be
Right.
the next team to do it.
Yeah, I agree. I think with the constructors, you need two strong drivers, which is where I think a lot of teams struggle because you need both drivers to be
Yeah.
consistent, not only just the car to be consistent. So I could totally see Aston Martin. I could see Ferrari if they figure it out. Also, I think within the next 5 to 10 years, Audi, I could totally see coming up strong when
Okay.
they enter because I
Yeah.
think if they're going to invest so significantly into coming in F1, I would expect that they will come in strong. That's my
Yeah.
hope.
No, that's I think that's a
But it
great
depends
point.
on who they bring in on their team and who they keep
Yeah,
and things
yeah,
like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
So we'll see. But I could totally see that.
I
Um,
I'm curious to see who, like, I know we want Seb and Mick.
yeah.
I don't know that you win a championship with those two at this point.
It would really have to be like a ballpark kind of. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's yeah. I do think Aston Martin is the next team to do it though.
Yeah. I could see that. But yeah, I mean, over the years, he saw success with Daniel Ricciardo. Of course, Max Verstappen joined the team, as we know. Um, they've been doing really well this season. I will say though, in an article I read, Horner recently stated that they don't think that this lead will last forever due to the way F1 has changed. He said it used to be you were developing the car as quick as you could with whatever funds you could gather. And now you're having to be more strategic on what you develop, when you develop it, and what you're putting your limited budget to, which I think
Yeah,
is really interesting in F1 and the way it's changed. And I'm sure longtime fans have noticed this as well. But they also have the less wind tunnel time, of course, with their fee from last year, their issues that they had
yeah,
with the budget over cap. And then also just because they won, they inherently
right.
get less time. So it'll be interesting to see what impact that has. I think they're so far ahead still right now that it'll carry them for a while.
Yeah.
But I could see it being different next year.
I do think also I think they are holding back just how far ahead their car is right now
Yeah.
because the FIA has a tendency of as soon as I mean they did it with Mercedes like at
Mm-hmm.
times too where like if you show that you're too far ahead they will put in some regulations that just kind of reel you back in a little
Yep.
bit. So I do think Red Bull is like holding off a little bit on just showing how fast the car really is, but I think they're good for like another year or two at least.
Yeah. It'll really be dependent on how quickly the other teams can pick up and if they're
Yeah.
developing the right things at the right time.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting. But yeah, that's all I had on Horner. I don't see him leaving anytime soon. I mean, I think that man is going to retire with Red
Yeah.
Bull if he can.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Definitely. Um, Again, frustrating person, great team principal.
yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Um,
Oh, do you have any
so
predictions for Baku?
yeah, I was about to say it's race
Yeah.
week. I
Finally.
think this will be Red Bull 1-2. I think Baku lends well for
They
their
do
car.
well in they do really well in Baku, so I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah,
It's
I think Red Bull 1-2, probably Max 1, Checo 2.
mhm.
And then I think we get a proper scrap for third place between Alonso, George, and Lewis.
Yeah, I was gonna say the same.
I think we get a proper fight for it. Honestly, might end up being between Lewis and George. I think I said a few weeks back. I do think the Mercedes is like firmly the second fastest car.
Yeah.
And I think Alonso's racing out of his mind, which is, and Aston Martin, their technical team is making great strategic calls as well, which is maybe helping them outperform a little bit. But yeah, I think the real battles will be third through fifth, and depending if Checo races with his eyes open or not, we'll see what first and second looks like.
Yeah, and then I think Carlos will finish somewhere in there between 7 and 10.
Yeah.
Hopefully Charles finishes the race. Maybe he finishes ahead of Carlos this time. I think Williams and Alpha will have another DNF for reliability issues because they've had issues every race almost.
Well, if Alpha's DNFing, I don't know about your boy Charles finishing the race. Yeah, that's at its core, that's the same car.
I know. What's sad is it's always Charles's car that has the issue so far this season. I mean, to be fair, one of them was a little bit of his, but
yeah, how much of Charles seemingly being the one to DNF a lot, how much of that do you think is him maybe pushing the car more than he should, where Carlos
or more than
knows,
it can?
Yeah, more than it can, where Carlos knows, hey, if I go full throttle on this thing for the next 20 laps, my car is going to blow up, and he doesn't.
Yeah. I think it's a lot of that, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think Charles is driving the car he wants to have, not the car he has, and that's
a great way to put it. I'm gonna make that a clip, because I like, at first it's like, damn, like poor Charles. And after like a year of it, it's like, all right, now hold on. Charles. Is he trying? He's trying to drive a Honda Civic like a Ferrari at this point, and I don't know why he keeps doing it.
No, that is true, because I did have a Honda Civic, and I would if I hit that gas a little too quick, it made a noise. So
yeah.
I'm trying to think of anything else. I mean, McLaren, I hope they finish.
Yeah.
Let's see. I think Yuki gets points again.
Okay.
Hopefully he doesn't finish 11th. I see him like getting 10th, maybe 9th.
I want him to keep scoring so he can. I think
I want him
by
to
no
stay.
fault. Yeah, by no fault of his own, I think his seat might get cut. But
yeah,
I hope he proves to another team that he's capable. So
yeah. So I hope to see points from him, and then I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah,
Alpine. I don't know.
you know what? I think Alpine needs to make it a goal to score like double points in every race, even if it's just 10th and 9th. Yeah. If they're not going to be fast, they need to be consistent.
Right. Yeah, because it's so interesting now, because it's like you have the top 2-3 teams just up there, but then you're going to have so many battles. You're gonna have so many battles between Ferrari, Alpine, and then also Lando, and then also in the back Yuki, who's also probably going to be battling Bottas and Joe. So I feel like, and hopefully they show more of this in the race on Sunday, is like just all of those battles happening in the midfield, because I feel like sometimes they just prioritize watching Sergio do 6 laps for fun, and then are like, oh, what's Lewis's camera look like? Right. But then you'll constantly see on the bar like all these switches happening, and it's like, show me. I want to see more of that. So we'll see.
No, and but like, I think midfield and like badfield, Jesus, backfield. I mean, like, even though those guys like Pierre, Lando, Ocon, they're not competing for wins or podiums, but they still have to be on it, because if they mess up, guys like Albon and Bottas specifically will clean it up. Like they will get right in there,
Yeah. Oh, I hope Albon finishes. I feel so bad for him in the last race. He was doing so well. So I think he'll make it into Q3 again.
Oh,
I'll put that out there. Yeah. But that's all I got.
Yeah, that's all I got. Follow us on all socials at BrakeCheck F1, where you will see our faces enlarged on your phone screen, talking about what we talked about here.
Woo!
Yeah.
It's fun.
We will be back for the Baku Grand Prix recap.
Hmm.
And we'll talk to you then. We'll see how our predictions do.
Yeah.